Marc, happy birthday week to ya. And what's your happiness meter after the past 24 hours have transpired?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy one. Shout out turning 30, finally hit that milestone. But losing Kyle Tucker, I was like, great, love that. Great way to end the birthday. Wake up this morning, getting ready to talk about how Kyle Tucker hurt. And then Bo Bichette's a Met out of absolutely nowhere. I didn't see that one coming.
Dude, incredible. So I have been listening to almost every episode all off season long. And I remember, I think it was the previous episode. I know you guys did an emergency episode today, but the previous one was talking about the Tucker interest for the Mets. And you and James Shanna were kind of split, right? You were trying to be a little more optimistic. James was like, nah, I think he said like this has Dodgers written all over it, and he nailed it. So take us through the psychology there of why you guys thought that would go down, and then how out of left field the Bo Bichette factor felt.
Yeah, with Kyle Tucker, I mean, I think I'm a Mets homer. I'm a little biased. And I wanted to believe that Kyle Tucker was going to be a Met. He's just one of the 20 best hitters, I think, on the planet at the absolute worst. And the contract offer was so aggressive that I thought, again, similarly, shout out Steve Cohen, where there's smoke, there's fire. But obviously, he ended up picking the Dodgers. And I think we all kind of knew it was going to be the Dodgers. James he's got to keep me level sometimes, which is why he had to check me there and make sure that everybody knows we still thought it was going to be them. So that one hurt, but he would have been a great fit. So the idea that like the Blue Jays were coming in, I never really fully bought that Tucker was going to be there. It did seem like it was for the Dodgers that he kind of was at least pushing that the Mets were giving these offers. And then for Bichette this morning, I mean, that's just, it's a lot of money. We've seen a crazy amount of money the last 12 to 18 hours on the free agent market between Tucker getting nearly 60 million a year. I know there's deferment, and then Bo Bichette going 40 mil plus a year. I didn't expect him to get 40 million a year, and I definitely didn't expect it with the Mets, but at the same time, I'm happy. Like the Mets desperately needed a right-handed bat in this lineup. They're clearly making a choice that they want to get new people in, new players, putting him in different positions. A little bit worried about if he plays third base, how he looks there, but the bat's legit, and adding that to the Mets lineup, that's never a bad thing.
I asked Ken Rosenthal about an hour and a half ago this same question. Is the Mets lineup better today than it was if they brought the exact same guys who they had last year at the end of the year?
No, I don't think it is. I still think I would have preferred Pete Alonso over Bo Bichette, and I think that's something that Mets fans are probably going to struggle with in how you think about this team moving forward. The lineup offensively, not better. I think defensively, this team is better. I think that was one of their issues last year. I also think that we're going to see guys step up this year. Like I think Francisco Alvarez at the end of the year showed that bat is what we thought it could be, and that will help this lineup a lot. But I would have preferred Pete Alonso over Bo. I think losing Nimmo hurt. We still don't have two outfielders. Like I trust Carson Benj whenever he is ready, but you don't want to put that kind of pressure on the kid coming into opening day. So yeah, I think there's still crazy enough to say a lot of holes in this team, but we're definitely better off now with Bo Bichette than we were without him.
Marc, what about the other two guys that might be pushed out of the playing third base? We had 2024, it was Vientos' job, and 2025, it was Baty's job, and now we have both of those guys still probably only can play third base, and now there's a third baseman. So what happens with those two guys? Do we conceivably see, because pitching is a problem, do you see any world in where one or both, because we know Vientos can play first as well and be a DH, and he's got a pretty good bat, like where those guys get moved and maybe there's some big league ready pitching out there because pitching is a problem? What do you see happening with those two guys?
Yeah, so I think to talk about Baty first, I think Ken said in one of his tweets or an article recently how Baty they might see playing a little bit first, as well as his name was very active on the trade market. So I think that if Baty were to be moved, it's going to be for a starting pitcher. I don't know who that would be, but I think with the control and what he showed in the second half of the season, Baty's definitely got some value right now. But also that's why I think the Mets would want to keep him, and the fact that he can play third, he can play second, maybe he can play a little first. And I know this is a pipe dream, but in the past, he played even left field for a couple innings, I think, for the Mets, and they tried that out a few spring trainings ago. Maybe he takes over the Jeff McNeil role, where he's more of a super utility man. But I do think that if the right starting pitcher is available and Brett Baty has to be on the trade to get that guy, it seems like the Mets might be willing to do so. Now, for Vientos, I'm not 100% sure what they do with him. He's kind of just a first baseman right now, more of a DH. And while we saw the heights in 2024, where he really was a huge reason why that team got on a run, 2025 was the complete opposite. He just wasn't the same hitter that we saw and expected. I don't think that the Mets should lose faith in Vientos, but with the way that roster crunches work, with the way that options work, with the limited positional flexibility that Vientos has, I think it's tough to kind of imagine where he fits into this team, especially now with the addition of Bo. So maybe that's a trade. Maybe that's trying to win a job out of spring training, but I think the Mets still have a ton of moves to make, and those guys will definitely be a part of them.
2 words. I asked you about the lineup, but 2 words we keep hearing from the Mets, whether it's David Stearns or Nimmo as he went out the door: run prevention. Are you at the point where you're like, I'm fine with it, I'm able to sit with my hands just folded, or are you going to watch every game thinking about run prevention like, I don't know what's going to happen?
Yeah, like, I think it would be crazy for any Mets fans to think that, like, Bo Bichette's going to come in and be a Gold Glove third baseman. So then it comes to the conversation of how bad was Pete Alonso's defense versus what will Bo Bichette's defense look like at third, and then how different will their bat be? That's going to be the big thing that I think every Met fan goes back and forth with this year. I think they did improve defensively. Like, Simeon at second base is a huge, huge boost. And I think they still are going to address the outfield defense at some point. But yeah, hearing run prevention being as prominent of a like talking point for David Stearns this offseason, and then seeing some of the moves like Jorge Polanco probably can play first base, but he's never really done it. So defense is still a question mark there. Bo Bichette's never played a professional inning, I think, at third base, not even in the minor leagues. That's still a question mark there. That's one of those where, Kratz, I think you're right. I might be crossing my fingers a little bit more this year of like, I hope these guys work out these positions. The bats, though, I trust. It's the gloves now.
One of the things that Scott said was Stevie Cohen woke up this morning and was like, crap, I didn't get Tucker. I'm going after Bo. My argument was, I don't think he slept last night. Do you think Stevie Cohen, the way that he came into New York and is like, this is going to be a winning team, I want to become the team of New York City, I want to be this, that, like all the things that he said, do you think he is enjoying the way it is going based on the splash he made last year with Juan Soto and the fact that he trusted David Stearns' pitching up until May 16th-ish, his pitching plan? Do you think he enjoys the way it's going, or do you think this move solidifies the fact that he's like, David, great job. Get out of my way. We're getting Bo because I cannot lose out on another guy?
I'll be honest. I hope Steve Cohen's not happy with how it's going. The Mets still haven't done anything. So it would be honestly awful if he was like, hey, this is going pretty well. I mean, I think we know he's pretty excited about the project that's going to be going on in Citi Field in the next coming years. That's probably a big thing that's helping him out. But for this Mets team, like, I do think this was a bit of a move that was a little on tilt. Like, I think he got a little frustrated with what happened with Tucker. The Mets seemingly gave a pretty good offer to him. Maybe something that Steve Cohen thought nobody could beat. So it does feel a little bit like he kind of pushed the chips all in here and said, we have to go get this next guy. This is the guy I want. I know that it's been reported that the Mets had been talking to Bo, that this was the plan all along, that if they didn't get Tucker, they'd move to Bichette, but we hadn't heard anything about it. So for me, from an outside perspective, I think that Cohen definitely got a little frustrated with what happened last night, and they decided to put all their money and put their chips into Bo Bichette, and hopefully more moves coming forward, because this team still got, again, a lot of holes.
I want to talk about pitching one more time. We have 6 starting pitchers out here in the depth chart, including 3 of the real young guys in Jonah Tong, Brendan Sproat, and Noel McLean, who by all accounts should probably be the opening day starter. But the other 2, Jonah and Sproat. 2 questions, 2-parter. First, outside of those guys waiting in the wings, who's the next young guy, prospect guy, to come up and be in the starting pitching category? And if it comes down to these 6 guys in spring, we're competing for the 5th spot, do you think it's conceivable? Is this something that you see Stearns doing, or maybe getting some value out of, say, Jonah Tong's the 6th guy outside looking in? Do we make a decision on maybe getting some long innings out of them, some more big league time, or possibly turning them into a back-end guy because there's a lot of swing and miss here? Or is this going to be a wait and see because of the wealth of the pitching? Do you think anyone could be moving to the bullpen is what I'm trying to ask?
Definitely. I think Sproat and Tong could definitely be guys early on the season in the bullpen, especially because with Tong, we know that the fastball is great. The changeup's awesome. We need to develop that third pitch. So until he gets a third pitch that's more consistent between the curveball and slider, I think bullpen long relief role is kind of what makes the most sense going into opening day this season. Where Sprode, I think, like similar to what Stearns has done in Milwaukee with guys like Burns and Peralta and Woodruff, they kind of all started in the bullpen until they got to a point where Stearns and the Brewers felt comfortable enough to put them into that rotation, and then they filled in pretty seamlessly. So I think, yeah, those guys will be good back-end arms that can give us some length in the bullpen, and that's never a bad thing to have too, especially with how often the Mets starting pitching couldn't go deep last year. You don't want to necessarily, I think it's going to be hard to expect Sean Manaea necessarily right out of spring training to be able to go 6-7 innings, Kodai Senga, those kind of guys. So to be able to have Tong and Sproat in the bullpen to piggyback off of them if they do go shorter in an outing, I do love that flexibility. And I am still very excited to see what strides forward these guys make during in spring training, because the last time we saw them was at the end of the season. So maybe Jonah Tong has developed that curveball, that slider, to become a third or even a fourth pitch now that he can use to help get out left-handed batters and right-handed batters. But that will still be determined. A guy that you mentioned, though, that's maybe a little bit slept on, a little under the radar in the system. We obviously have Christian Scott coming back from injury that I think is going to be a big part of this team too down the stretch. But Jack Wenninger, he absolutely dominated the minors last year, had one of the highest K to walk ratios in all of minor league baseball. I think because of all the big name young pitchers that the Mets had, he's been slept on a little bit, but you're starting to see him kind of float around that top 100 prospect list. And 2026 could be a big, big year for him. If he keeps striking out batters like he has and limiting the walks, it's hard not to get excited about a pitcher like that.
Next move you see and next move that you want to make this, that smile back on your birthday train, because old birthday cake is totally fine unless you left it out and it got stale. So we can't let the Mets get stale here. So the next move you see happening and the next move you want to happen.
Okay, so, I mean, next move I see happening, I think that it's going to be Framber Valdez. It feels like Framber's been kind of on the Mets radar all offseason, especially if they're going to go that aggressive with the Bo Bichette contract. I would assume that they're going to go that aggressive with Framber Valdez too, especially with all the qualifying offer stuff now. I think that the Mets will definitely push in some of the chips on Framber, and I think he'd be a great fit in this rotation. I would love to see them go out and trade for a Freddie Peralta, or again, if you're asking me my birthday dream, if Tarek Skubal's ever available again, I would love to go after him, but I think that's an insane one to ask for. Freddie Peralta seems more realistic. That's someone who I'd love to see the Mets go after. I think they're going to be focused on pitching, and then maybe they address the outfield again. The Cody Bellinger rumors have been so hot and cold. I can't get a read as a Met fan on anything going on this offseason, let alone what's going on with Cody Bellinger in the Mets' interest. So maybe it's him. Maybe it's on the trade market. Maybe they really just believe in Carson Bench. But truthfully, for me to feel better and what I expect the Mets to do next, I do think it's going to be on the starting pitching market, and I think it's Framber Valdez.
Pecking order. We need a pecking order.
Okay.
National League East pecking order today, January 16th. Lock it in, Mark.
I'm going to go Phillies 1 still. I think until the Mets win that division, the Phillies are still the best team. And you look at them top to bottom, they're good. I think the Mets are 2. They were pretty close last year, and it really took a spectacular collapse at the end of the season to not make it into the playoffs. I think Braves are 3. That team just had a weird season, and I would like to see them be healthy before I can feel confident about what's going on in Atlanta. 4 Marlins, 5 Nationals. I think the Nationals are a clear tier even below the Marlins.
Can you definitively say, because I got roasted by this secret Twitter channel chat that doesn't allow outside Met fans in last year? Can you definitively say, I tried to respond to them and they didn't let me respond. I was like,
we're vicious.
You know what? They weren't vicious. It was fine. They just said stuff like you're bald, you're fat, you had a brutal career, all things that are very, very true and not that hurtful. But can you definitively say the Mets today, without your Framber Valdez and Tarek Skubal trade, are they better than the Braves?
I think so. Something happened last year with the Braves where I like a lot of the moves that they made. I don't think the Braves are a bad team, but I also was weirdly one of the guys last year, very early to it, where I was like, I don't think the Braves are going to be necessarily as good as we expect them. I had them missing the playoffs. I had them finishing in 3rd place last year in my predictions. One of the few things I did get right. But at the same time, that team's getting older. We saw some of the bats not be as strong as they were in previous years. I think while there's definitely supposed to be some regression back to the mean positively for them, I also think at times this might just be the version of the Braves. It is tough with that rotation. Spencer Strider was horrible. I don't think he's going to be that bad, but You kind of have to see it till you believe it. Chris Sale's getting a year older. There's a lot of question marks there. I think them and the Mets are very close. I think that in terms of talent and what their kind of goals are this year, I think those teams can be interchangeable in that 2-3 spot. But I do think that there is a clear difference between the Mets, Braves, and then the Phillies at the top.